Alright, so let's talk about part 6, which to me is definitely the most funniest of all the films. But I like how it's it's very humorous as opposed to most of them, even though the other ones do have campy moments in them. I felt like this belonged in the universe really well, though, because the humor in this was very subtle. I thought that the humor didn't overexert itself, and it made it seem like it makes sense in this world. Like, it makes sense with all the campy moments in the last 5 movies that of this franchise, especially part 5, which was kind of extremely over the top in terms of just acting and how people reacted to stuff. And I love part 5. This one that might be my favorite Friday film out of them all. I don't care. I think it is fantastic. Just on a level of entertainment alone, like, I feel like part 5 is my favorite. But part 6, I think, is so damn great as well. I think part 6 has so many great things about it. Like the humor. The humor in it, to me, really holds up in a way. Like, I've seen it so many times, and I feel like the humor always sticks with me. I think that it's so subtle to where it's not over the top, but it makes sense in these movies to be like this. And this is the most humorous and meta one out of all of them. And I like how this movie inspired Scream in a way. Tom McLaughlin, the director of this, heard that whenever Scream was coming out, he heard that this was inspiration for it. And Wes Craven, before he made Scream, made New Nightmare, which had meta elements to it. Like, that's a real life Freddy Krueger in real life with a celebrity thing in that movie, and it was out of the Nightmare universe, and it was meta. And I liked how those two movies made Scream in a way, because he already had the idea of having a meta kind of movie where they reference horror movies. But he used humor like this in part 6 that of Friday the 13th that really works. And the humor to me is just really awesome because, like I said, it's very subtle. I like how it's got a lot of random, like, cuts of these jokes that start and then go to another thing. Like, for example, whenever the guy is watching the graves, whenever the dirt is put back up when Tommy Jarvis dug up Jason's grave, the grave watcher is looking at the grave, and then he looks at the screen and said, "Did they dig him up? What do they think I am, a fart head?" And then it cuts to all the kids at Crystal Lake screaming "yes" out loud. And I think that it's such fun humor like that makes this movie so interesting from the other ones. And like I said, the humor is in a lot of these movies, but this one is the most intentional. But it's really subtle too, which I think is really great. And I liked whenever Nancy McLaughlin's character and the couple, whenever they are in the car, and whenever she's driving and she looks at Jason in front of them with a spear or whatever weapon he has, and she says, "I'm turning around," and the guy says, "Why?" And she said, I've seen enough horror movies to know that a guy wearing a hockey mask is never friendly." And I like whenever she gets killed too, that she has a credit card float in the water where she just got killed. And the funny reasoning that Tom McLaughlin said that he had something like that is because somebody in the audience would probably scream, "Don't go home without it," like in the background of the theater. And I think that that's great, just subtle humor. Like, it doesn't always have to be right in your face, and sometimes it is, but it's not in a way where it ruins it. It really, tonally, it makes it really fun. And I like how this movie is usually one of the absolute favorites from people, even if they're not a fan of this franchise. Even if a lot of people hate this franchise, I feel like a lot of people give this movie, I think this movie is more fun than any of the other ones, or a better movie, quote unquote. And I really like that. I like that this movie holds up and it's the 6th film. And I like how a lot of people just still think this humor is great. I still think the movie is really great. And I love the franchise almost as a whole. There's a couple exceptions that I don't like or hate, but for the most part, like, the first 7 to me, I think, are really, really great. And I think that this one is cool too, because this is the 3rd Tommy Jarvis film, or the final Tommy Jarvis film in the franchise, because he never comes back after this one. and it's the third time he's played by a different actor. This time, Thom Matthews from Return of the Living Dead, and he's really good in this movie too. And it has the annual tradition of a Friday the 13th film by not usually making much of a reference to the last film, where Part 5 A New Beginning, which did not have Jason in it and had a copycat, and had Tommy Jarvis going crazy at the end, he's just... this movie starts with him and his friend going to dig up Jason's grave, and he's going to burn his corpse, light it on fire. But you don't see what happened after Part 5, where Part 5 literally ends with Pam walking into this hospital room and then Tommy wearing Roy's hockey mask with a knife behind her, and the camera goes into his eye hole, and it ends, so you think he killed her, and you never get an explanation in the movie, which to me really did suck, because I liked Pam a lot. I did not want her to die. And apparently she didn't. Apparently I haven't played the new Friday the 13th game that came out last year, but apparently one of the writers for one of these movies, I can't remember which one at the moment, but there's one writer who actually integrated something into that game where it referred to Part 5 and the ending being a dream, like where he killed her or was going to kill her, which I thought is really good. So then she survived, and that makes sense why that blue Ford that Tommy drives in Part 6 is the same one from Part 5 that Pam drove. I think that's cool that they kept that truck, but they never mentioned her or mentioned Reggie at all, and I think that that's really stupid. But I guess I'm used to this franchise always doing it. They always, for the most part, usually are not connected. Even if this one, the 3 Tommy Jarvis films, are really loosely connected in a way. Besides the fact that it's Tommy Jarvis and he has the past thought of killing Jason, and he's still haunted by it. And I liked how they kept that, because in Part 5 they really had that where Tommy was haunted by killing Jason Voorhees for good, and he's dead in that movie. And in this one, whenever Tommy goes to his grave, he has the thoughts again in his head, hearing the voice of Trish screaming not to kill him, and how Tommy did literally murder him. And I liked how the flashbacks come back to him right when he's about to kill Jason again, and I like how Jason is brought back, and this is another great form of subtle humor, how he is brought back with a lightning bolt, with a rod impaled into him, like Frankenstein. And I really think that's fun that they brought him back that way, and he's zombie Jason in this movie. And he's unkillable. And I love that too. I love how in the end they know that they can't kill him. So what Tommy and Megan do is they literally just have him have a rock and a chain and hook him on it and put him underneath the lake. And I like Tommy's reasoning, saying that that's his resting place, like put him back to his resting place, and if he won't die, then keep him stuck down there. And I think that's really cool because they don't kill him again, and I think that's awesome. Like in almost all these movies with Jason in them, they usually kill him, or it's up to the viewer to see if he's dead, but then of course you get another film afterwards. But whenever they do things like this, like I liked how it was just him on at the bottom of the lake, just waiting there until he can be released from those chains. And I thought that was cool instead of just killing him again. I thought that was fun. Even though, of course, that means we'd have another sequel. And we did. We had a lot more sequels after this one. But I think this one is just a great one in the franchise. It is... And I love most of these films in this franchise. And I feel like if you don't even like this franchise, you could probably like this one. I think this one has a lot of great fun humor to it. It's very self-aware and doesn't take itself overly serious. And it is, to me, I noticed the similarities between this and Scream a lot, even though I like this more than Scream. But I think that this is just a fun, entertaining, subtly done humor with this movie. And I think that all the characters are fun. And I like the final Tommy Jarvis, like how his story is kind of resolved in this. I liked how it's resolved. And I liked all of the characters again. I think they're all fun, even if they're there for a second. They all have fun jokes that they say, or they're just fun, entertaining characters. And I think that as a whole, it's just, I think, one of the best ones. And like I said, I really love the first 7 and Freddy vs. Jason. And then I'm mixed on a lot of the other ones. But this one to me is definitely one of the highest up there, and I think probably after part 5 and part 1, I'd say this one's my favorite after that. In the Friday the 13th films, I'd say that's my favorite after those two, because it is really, really fun and really great, and it's a great feat for a sixth sequel, or for a sixth film in the franchise to actually be great. Or great to me. I mean, I know critics, of course, some critics like this a little more than the other Friday the 13th films, but people still shit on it. Of course, these are films that I feel like don't need to be viewed by critics. They're just movies that are just fun, and they're not trying to be Shakespeare. They're not trying to be anything like intelligent. They're just trying to be fun and entertaining. And I think this one is one of the most entertaining of the franchise, and I really, really love it so much. I think it's one of the best in the franchise, and it's one that I watch a lot. I think that it's one that deserves to be watched a lot. It really, really is entertaining, and I love it so much.